In this video I am talking about the new documentary movie just released on UK iTunes. That is of course The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. Now I was going to do this live, doing a live stream video, but YouTube's just been annoying trying to figure out how to do the live stream, because they've changed it yet again with all these changes to their the way they're doing things right now, and I can't get it to work. So I'm just going to do it as a recorded video, and people can leave their comments of what they thought of the movie at the bottom of on the comments on this video page. So I'm talking about the newly released movie, The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. This is, of course, the documentary following the lives of Jake the Snake Roberts, Diamond Dallas Page, and Scott Hall, all former world wide-known professional wrestlers. Before I get into running down what this about this movie, which is directed by Steve Yeun, produced also by Steve Yeun, Dallas Page, Chris Carey, and Chris Bell. It also features talking heads, including right the way throughout the documentary, including Steve Austin, Chris Jericho, Dustin Rhodes, Jim Ross, Gene Okerlund, Ted DiBiase, Jim Duggan, and Adam Copeland, who we know as Edge. Before I get into giving the rundown, because I'm going to go through the movie and the 1 hour 36 minute movie and talk about what happens, I want to quickly give a little bit of my background of how I'm going into view this movie. Well, first of all, obviously I'm a huge wrestling fan, that's no doubt. I've had the opportunity to meet Scott Hall and Dallas Page, not had the chance to meet Jake the Snake. Hopefully one day I will. I will also say, and I'm not saying this for the sake of any supposed moral high ground, or to say that I'm this and they're that, or they're this and I'm that. I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, and I don't drink alcohol. Not due to any problems that I've had, it's just a life choice that I have made. Now, this obviously gives me my view of the movie, and of course, like I said, I've never met Jake the Snake Roberts, and I've certainly never walked even a step in his shoes, never mind a mile. But so the whole battles with addiction and that kind of stuff, the real personal experience, it's nothing that is really known to me. So this was certainly a long-awaited movie. It's been screened all over several film festivals, Slam Dance. There's been quite a few screenings in the United States of America and several states, with normally either Jake, Scott, and or Diamond Dallas Page in attendance for this one, for that, and normally it includes a Q&A session before or after the movie. And we've all seen lots of rave reviews of this movie, which I thought was really good. So the movie starts off with, and actually it's quite a bonus. Some of these movies, especially ones like former WWE superstars like Jake or the Iron Sheik or something. Some of these you see footage from independent wrestling events. You don't see WWE footage, but in this one you do. Right from the start, right the way throughout it, you see actually official WWE footage. So to let them have the WWE footage in this documentary is fantastic. So it shows the intro, really about 5-10 minutes of showing how Jake the Snake Roberts was a huge WWE star in the 80s, all the crowds, the people he took on, and lots of compliments from various talking heads, as I mentioned above, they all talk about how influential he was in their career, how they looked up to him, how they used to watch him, and then it goes to a couple of his children. Apparently he's got 8 children in total, but it shows you in this documentary only 3 of them really feature: Derek, Dustin and Brandy, and they share memories of seeing their dad on TV, and then it starts taking a dark turn when people start talking about his problems, and they talk about their fears for him over the last several years. Now, before I continue, I do want to say, I know that Jake Roberts doesn't like the way that he was depicted in the Beyond the Mat documentary. It's difficult, again, for me to judge. I don't know what footage was left on the cutting room floor. I don't really know, whatever the whole many hours that the crew spent with him was like. I don't know. What I would say is for people to watch that and make up their own minds. But I would also like to tell people, before I continue, to go and watch the WWE documentary biography set that they released a few years ago called Pick Your Poison. It's one of the traditional WWE documentary DVD releases where they have a documentary on Jake Roberts, real name Aurelian Smith. Though throughout this I'm going to call him Jake Roberts, as that is how we know him. And to be honest, I prefer calling wrestlers the name that we know them rather than their real name, unless I know them. But I would say go back, still watch Pick Your Poison. If you don't want to watch Beyond the Mat, watch Pick Your Poison, because you get a real good understanding of kind of some of the stuff that Jake's gone through. Some of that childhood histories, even stuff beyond that, growing up with the murderer. I believe it was his sister. Well, I don't know whether they even found her body, but there was enough blood in the trunk of the car that was identified as hers to know that she was dead. There's so many stories, so much stuff regarding the past history, personal history of Jake the Snake Roberts. Go back and watch that documentary. So we see the fears for him from his kids. We see footage from his independent appearance on September 12th, 2008 in Lakewood, Ohio. Jake is really out of shape, no condition to perform. Ends up, it's almost like the Jeff Hardy Sting incident in TNA. He loses in 30 seconds. That was, of course, one of the famous bits that TMZ, which I really don't like TMZ, but they picked up, put the footage online, and it went viral. Then we see the introduction, really the start of Diamond Dallas Page helping him. On August 11th I think it was 2012, in Gainesville, Texas, DDP and the documentary, he does the filming, he appears during the movie, does direct, produce it, as I said, Steve Yu, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Steve Y, it's Y-U, so I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, goes to see Jake in his home. It's a very small home, one level, it's quite clean. It's not really dirty. When I was rewatching this documentary, I looked to see it, and actually it's quite decently clean. It's not as if he was living in a huge, real dirty home, and it wasn't rat infested. There might be a few insects and so forth, but you do get that in Texas. Steve Austin's had problems with rats in his garage and chewing up the wires of his vehicles. He talks about it on the podcast. But it looked very clean. Lots of pictures on the wall of Jake, magazine covers, pictures of him in action, different photos of him during his life and career. And it seems they stay with him a couple of days. It doesn't actually not acknowledge it, but it seems they do stay with him a couple of days, or at least Steve Yu does, and they start trying Jake on the DDP yoga stuff. He said he retired a year ago, he's got a new hip, but still very much struggling, very much out of shape, and I know I'm not exactly one to right now to say that, but he's about £300. They get him down to about £288 before he then starts moving to Atlanta, Georgia in October of 2012. He moves to the Accountability Crib in Atlanta, Georgia. That's the house that DDP owns, lives in with various people. There's a whole production team right the way through. I don't know exactly all their names, but there's a huge crew that actually helps all of them right the way throughout this documentary. You can see it. Thumbs up to them, all of them in there. I couldn't quite catch the name. I know there were a few of them that were mentioned. A few names came up on the documentary, but big, huge thumbs up to all of them. Well done to them. Jake, really, the first 20 minutes the rest of the first 20 minutes is actually quite positive. Jake starts doing the workout, still struggling with his knee and his toes, and you see it. Then a bit where he appeared at an independent show in Texas, where one of the so-called news websites says that he turned up drunk and caused a scene. Jake really takes offence at that, admits he had 2 beers backstage in the locker room, but nothing in front of the public, and he certainly wasn't drunk. And they're on the phone to somebody. I don't think they actually acknowledge who that was. I believe it must have been one of whoever wrote the story or the website or somebody. They were on the phone to them anyway, and Jake said that he certainly was not drunk. Then, about a week into his stay, there's a very weird situation where Jake somehow ended up at the airport. I think he was away visiting maybe his daughter or something, but he ends up at the airport. Or I think he may have just been staying at the house, went to the airport and wanted to go back to Texas. He certainly, I believe, probably been drinking or under the influence of something. Simon Dallas Page says that you can certainly smell it on his breath. And DDP, growing up around the bars, of his youth, and even, of course, DDP used to manage bars. Said you can smell it on his breath, and you do see that Jake has no shoes on. He claims it's because of his feet. His feet were hurting, but he's not actually carrying the shoes with him. Now, this is really the first of several, I wouldn't say called relapses, but maybe, I think I've got it later in my notes, possible crisis of confidence. I'll just call it that, and I'll get to that in a moment or two. But this is the first of those crises of confidence by Jake during the film. It's a little bit of an ongoing situation, but you can kind of understand it. And I'll get to that a little later, because there's a great quote later on in the movie from one of his sons. That leads DDP picks Jake up. Now that's how they have kind of an argument. DDP parks up and they kind of have an argument. Jake threatens to leave the car. He threatens to go out of the car. He's kind of trying half with the leg going out of the car. It's like he's going to walk away. To be honest, God knows where he would have gone in the middle. It was right in the middle of the night, or at least early evening. It's dark, so who knows where he would have gone. But the thing is, also through this, you see an interview later on, and then the next morning with Jake. Yeah, it's the next morning, and they're in the kitchen, and Dallas is asking, well, what happened last night? How much do you remember? He remembers getting picked up, but I don't think he remembers quite after that. One of the things that goes right throughout this movie, as well as the couple of crises of competence, we'll call it that, because it's kind of real, but I think it's more. As I said, I'll explain it as we go on. More crisis of competence. Jake really doesn't seem to want. Obviously, again, I don't know. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a mind reader. I can't, know what exactly he's thinking. Only he can. But he certainly does know or realise that he has to change. I mean, I know that many people, including myself, wouldn't have been surprised many years ago if the news had broken online that Jake Roberts was found dead wherever it was, in a hotel room in his home, surrounded by drink bottles, with bottles of pills. Years ago, we would not certainly have been surprised at that. We've got like Steve Austin says later on. Not everybody. Unfortunately, some guys do meet their demise early, and obviously he's talking. Doesn't name names, but guys like Kurt Hennig, Brian Pillman. I know that was heart failure due to a secret heart condition. But there's been so many guys in this industry that I don't need to go through names in wrestling that have passed away, still very young. Jake knows it. Jake knows that he has to change. He even says, "This is my last effing chance. This is my really last fucking chance." And to be honest, I think it pretty much is, or was. One of the great things that Jake really, like I said, it's again kind of the next few minutes you really get to see him starting working out, and you really do. Again, you get the feeling that Jake really knows that this is the time, that this is what last opportunity to actually change. We then see, it then comes up that Jake is scheduled to go to Las Vegas for an autograph signing. This is one of the first, well, I'd say one of the first anyway, one of the real first tests for the new lifestyle of Jake Roberts. As he spends 4 days in Las Vegas for the autograph event, comes back, and you actually see him, you don't see him mostly physically taking the test, but you see him in the test centre taking a drugs and alcohol test, which he passes with flying colours. And then you kind of get another little bit of montage, continuing to work out, even starts doing YouTube videos with DDP. I believe it's Diamond Dallas Page, that is the YouTube channel. There's also, I think, DDP Yoga YouTube channel. Very funny bit where, obviously the work continues and Jake is actually weighed on the scales around about £261. He keeps moving the scales, that's not the right bit of floor, that's not the right bit of floor, that's, because he thought, he was a little bit lighter than the £261. It's quite a funny bit. Then another setback for Jake. He's working out, and you see him go over on his side, I think it's on his left, on his right side. He's been suffering with shoulder problem. He's been trying to work through it, but ends up with him needing an operation. Now, this is the bit where the fans come into this. And I saw this myself, and unfortunately at the time, due to various personal circumstances, I didn't have the money to donate. But what DDP and the whole production crew did, again, thumbs up to them. They were really good throughout that. They set up a crowdfunding project on the website Indiegogo. Total of 9,200. I can't remember. I meant to check how much they see whether I could find how much they actually raised in total. But they did strike the target, and just overnight, after setting up the crowdfunding project, they raised $7,000 of that 9,200 target, to pay for the shoulder operation that Jake needed, which really, really, you could see when you see. Because Jake has his daughter, his daughter Brandy. I'm not entirely sure I think that maybe the lady that actually appeared him. I think it was the one that appeared on Beyond the Mat and quoted I think it's Sylvia Plath and saying "fuck you, daddy," and she's got the really grungy scrapbook. And to be honest, at that point, as I said, that point really one of the points we were, we would not have been surprised, to be honest, that Jake had been found dead. I'm glad it's never happened. But I'll give you my final thoughts later on. I wish I could have donated, but unfortunately didn't have funds. He expresses his wish to be in the WWE Royal Rumble. It would be great to see him this year. After the release of this, movie, they're working on getting it released in other countries. It would be great to see him on January 24th in Orlando for the Royal Rumble. I don't know whether we'll see it this year, but it would be great. And he makes that a little bit of a story in the rest of the documentary. At that point, Sean Waltman messages Diamond Dallas Page and asks, that whether he can help Scott Hall. And this is the point really where everybody was, it was quite a mainstream story that Jake Roberts was moving in with DDP, that DDP was trying to help him, that DDP was trying to get Jake's life back on track, and it became quite a story about the continued progress. Like I said, with these YouTube videos and with all internet coverage of wrestling these days, it was quite a big story, the continuing story of DDP's attempts to help Jake Roberts. And I said DDP, like I said, again, with everybody else, all the DDP Yoga, whatever I'm not sure whether they have an official title of the whole crew there, but they're certainly, I'll call them the Accountability Crib crew. They keep their efforts, continuing efforts to help Jake. So Jake and DDP give Scott Hall a phone call. and you could tell Scott's quite a little bit out of it. He tells even Jake that he's dying, that he's always looked up to him, and that's the point where DDP has a relationship with these two guys. For those who don't understand, DDP has always had a great relationship with the likes of Jake Roberts, who was his mentor when Page was starting in the wrestling business, well before he even became an actual wrestler at the age of 35. DDP was a manager in the likes of AWA and several independent places, and even a manager in WCW in the early 90s, around about the time when Jake was in that company as well. Because obviously Jake's, I think, most famous feud in WCW was Sting, the coal miners glove match. Was it coal miners on a pole match? I think it's 92, 93, that kind of time. That's the kind of time period, I think, certainly when DDP was in WCW as a manager. I remember, as you see on there, he managed Scott Hall as the Diamond Stud. He managed Raven as Scotty Flamingo, and Kevin Nash as Vinny Vegas. He managed quite a bit in the Freebirds as well. So DDP certainly had a great amount of guys that he managed in WCW. So he's always had a great relationship also with Scott Hall. When Scott Hall went back to WCW in 1996. And you see great WWE footage from WCW actually of the very famous one. It's one of my most enjoyable moments from WCW when Scott and Kevin offer DDP a NWO t-shirt and a place in the NWO, and DDP hits the diamond cutter on Scott Hall, and then when Kevin Nash runs on, he lowers the top rope and Kevin Nash goes over the top rope and hit onto the floor, and it's really one of the best moments. And I really like Diamond Dallas Page. It's certainly one of the moments that really launched DDP's career up the card into the main event status that he ended up being in WCW. So they invite Scott to come down. Scott accepts it. And Scott on the phone says, "Well, maybe I feel this is a spiritual awakening." He moves in apparently about 30 days, so-called straight, with no drinks or drugs. Now, I have to say, he does. There could have been a little bit more of Scott Hall in this documentary. I know that traditionally in documentaries like these, they're a limited time. Some documentaries do have different versions out. For instance, the last of McGuinness documentary, it's around about 2 hours or so, but there is a shorter version out there that Nigel McGuinness put out to try and get into some film festivals, etc. He cut it down, cutting some of the wrestling content away from it to just for non-wrestling fans, to try and get it out there more generally. So sometimes these documentaries, they do cut down some of the stuff to keep it not too long, to keep down the time limit of the documentary, to have it not going 3-4 hours, which I'm sure all the hundreds of hours of footage they must have had. And I know myself, even when I've edited videos together, sometimes you end up with quite a bit of footage, and you have to cut it down to make it really kind of an acceptable limit. But I would have liked to see a little bit more of Scott Hall in this, and I do have a video on my YouTube channel actually about Scott, but it's from the infamous Wolfpack tour. It was from the Glasgow show of that tour, and I think it's called Scott Hall on why he doesn't drink anymore. And he actually tells the story of how he ended up getting the pacemaker, which is one of the things that he feels is really held him back. And you hear Scott talk about his troubles and a little bit, and the struggle that he had recently. DDP obviously again starts him on the DDP yoga. He struggles physically as Jake did, and you see them working out a bit with helping with they always the way that DDP seems to certainly starts Jake with it and then starts Scott with it is with 2 chairs, and use them for to pull yourself up and to balance yourself. So DDP starts getting Scott Hall there on the DDP yoga journey as well. Then we get to see Jake getting a phone call saying that from the Cauliflower Alley Club saying that they are honouring him, they're inducting him into the club. Very good emotional speech by Diamond Dallas Page. As I said, the three guys have known each other for many, many years. Mostly, DDP obviously connecting the two, but they've known each other. Certainly nowadays, 2016, they've known each other for so many years. And DDP is very emotional, and then Jake makes a great speech. And the one thing that is great about the speech of the Cauliflower Alley Club, which is one of genuine, I mentioned it on my Wrestling in Life podcast that I do on Podomatic.com and iTunes when I put a new episode up yesterday. So many places have wrestling, so-called halls of fame now. Whether it be wrestling or otherwise, lots of websites, magazines, programs, and a lot of them set up what they call a hall of fame, and most, a lot of times, they're not proper hall of fames, obviously. They could tell, we'll induct this person, and that doesn't really mean anything. It's just a website, it's just a TV program. It may not carry any weight, but the Cauliflower Alley Club is one of this really special clubs, one of the most elite clubs in professional wrestling. It genuinely is something that carries a hell of a lot of weight. So, Jake makes a great speech, and one of the great thing is as his sons know, you see his. Like I said, Derek, Dustin, and Brandy several times speaking about their father throughout the documentary. I think it's Derek. Both of the sons actually make a note. And the one thing that struck me as well in the speech, that he makes the comment that he's finally ready to change, and the sons say that really struck a chord with them, and it really does. I mean, again, Jake, one of the guys that many people wrote off, and I hate to keep going back to this, but it really does strike a chord that when he says that he wanted to change, and even one of his sons says that he Jake tapped him on the chest and says that he wants more time with him, with his kids and with his grandkids. Now, this is again another crisis of confidence. Again, these happen a few times during the film. DDP again, it's when, as Diamond Dallas Page noticed when during the movie, DDP goes off. It was actually a DDP yoga retreat in Costa Rica, I believe. And that leaves kind of Jake and Scott in the house with several of the crew. But Scott jokes about Jake's hair, because at that point he still has the long hair, kind of like he had in the 1980s. At that point, when Jake jokes about the hair, it's obvious that Jake has. I mean, you see him really unshaven and kind of stubbly, very stubbly, throughout the movie. But certainly, you could tell that Jake has dyed his hair. Certainly dyed his mustache. It looks almost, I believe it's called Fu Manchu, the Chinese, where it goes over the top and down. It's like the long mustache, kind of the Chinese style. It just goes like almost like half goes around your lips. But it's so obviously dyed, it almost looks like it's painted on, which I think is kind of the start of jokes by Scott Hall. And it really upsets Jake, unfortunately. I know Scott was probably joking and just having a laugh, a bit of banter as we call it here in the UK, jokes amongst friends. But it really does upset Jake, and Steve Yu actually mentions at that point that Jake's really sensitive, especially when I think it's when Dallas goes away. He kind of doesn't have that friend there, and Dallas is been one of the guys you can reach out to, especially those we're a couple of months into it at this point. Dallas has been there from the last few months, really helped them, been friends for years and years, and I think that support system isn't there. And I think what changes as well, I think it's later in my notes as well, but I'll say it now. Jake is not really used to having a kind of support system there with him. normally it's been Jake on his own. He kind of pushed away his kids, pushed away his wives, he's pushed away his friends. I mean, it is, like I said, I know he doesn't like it, and I mentioned earlier, he doesn't like the Beyond the Mat documentary, but you do kind of get that little bit of a feeling the bits that Jake is on in that movie, that he is, whether it be, maybe, again, I'm not had that kind of thing of addiction, so I don't know whether it's the addiction that's caused it, or whether it's been him personally, or whatever the reason. He's either decided, that he's going to be on his own, or whether, because of addiction he's pushed people away. Again, I'm not walked any mileage in his shoes, so I don't know, but certainly you get the kind of indication that he's quite a loner, that he's quite, by himself. Whether it's through choice or not, you're not entirely sure. But certainly, Jake has not had that support system. It's been him on his own, and suddenly he's got this crew around him. And I think certainly that's one of the reasons why he has this crisis of confidence. He feels that, he feels kind of a little bit of pressure to stay clean, to stay sober. And I do, he has that pressure. When Jake gets upset, he calls Chris in the camera, and he does a bit to camera, and he says, I think it's actually just certainly said, I think he said it a couple of times, but that he feels he's never been good enough, that he's all this kind of pressure on him, and like I said, again, with everything that's happened with, throughout whether his personal life and his childhood, etc., he's never felt that he's been good enough, which has led to a kind of crisis of confidence. He does go off the rails a little bit on this time, because when, later, because just shortly after we see Scott upsetting Jake, Steve Yu talks to Jake privately. He does ask him whether he's been drinking, and they kind of very quickly, I think Jake suggests, certainly one of them suggests, but they both agree that perhaps Jake should take his Antabuse. Now, Jake has started a little bit earlier in the documentary taking Antabuse. Now, Antabuse is a drug which makes you physically ill when you take alcohol. It reacts with the alcohol. Let's see the best way to it kind of reacts with the alcohol in your system, makes it leave your system, makes you sick, and apparently, Jake later admits that it's very sleight of hand how he does that, but he agrees to take an anti-abuse tablet, but somehow spits out the tablet when he's drinking the water, and then he uses his hand to kind of bits of water to kind of wash the tablet down. He must he must just spat it in his hand and then maybe guide it down to the plug hole or something. But he later admits it anyway, because Steve Yu actually has a little bit of voice over there, so maybe it was a little bit dangerous. Because I think it is, if you've been drinking already, to take the Antabuse. It's I'm no medical expert, but I think it's apparently quite dangerous. I've heard it before. Dangerous to actually take that Antabuse if you've already been drinking. Like I said, it reacts with the alcohol in your system. But he later does admit it. He does drink again, he said, several times during relapse and struggles to crisis of competence. We're now about 9 months into this point. DDP, he kind of talks to Jake, at this point, and is worried. He that thing. DDP continues to tell me, I'm your buddy. I love you. I'm just trying to help you. DDP continues that kind of positive reinforcement kind of things. I'm really trying to help you, mate. I'm really trying to, I'm on your side. You don't need to hide anything from me. You don't need to tell me lies. Just tell me the honest truth, and we can help you. We're not here, especially, certainly in this movie, he's really trying to help him. DDP seeks out advice from different friends who have struggled again, it's talking about some of this talking heads. Certainly, Dustin Rhodes, actually credited as Dustin Runnels, and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. They have both struggled with different personal issues. Dustin struggled with drinking drugs, and Ted DiBiase struggled with his own problems. And if you read either of their books, and if you haven't, you can go and purchase them. They're really good books. There's even a DVD. I'm not sure whether Ted actually still sells them, but certainly he at least used to sell a DVD with a sermon that he gives at a church service thing, and he really tells the story. Quite a bit of how he ended up, realizing his marriage was in huge trouble, and he talks a little bit about. That's one of the reasons I kind of like to see a $1 Million Man DVD, but unfortunately, I don't think it'll be forthcoming anytime soon. But guys like Dustin and Ted, they've been both down that route, and actually, I think maybe they're one of the ones that DDP seeks advice of. You don't hear who he talks to, but he kind of sets out a new regime for Jake with alcohol, kind of Alcoholics Anonymous type meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days, and you kind of see Jake starting to get back on the right track. He appears with Scott and Paige, a Mick Foley comedy performance. And you also then see another project that he did in 2013, and you see behind the actual video for this is actually on the Diamond Dallas Page or DDP Yoga YouTube channels. It's a behind the scenes footage from the 2013 movie called Heavy Water. And I'll have to maybe try and see whether I can find a copy of that, see whether I can watch that. Which Jake, I think possibly Paige as well. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly Jake is in the movie, which he stars as Jed. They show a little bit behind the scenes, Jake and him walking about the set, talking to a few people, and you see them filming one of the scenes of the movie. And I have to say that it's a really great scene for Jake, and which his character Jed is telling a younger co-star in that scene. I don't know what his character's name is, but he's telling him to go, and he's telling him to go very quite aggressively, go, get out of here, go. The guy's having a confrontation with somebody that's in an almost, I think it kind of looks like an almost post-apocalyptical movie. I don't know. Again, I'm gonna have to go and see if I can check that out somewhere. Look in one of the movie shops, the film shops or something, DVD shops in here in Dundee. But one thing that I noticed, even in the first showing, when Jake does that scene, when because Jake is really shoulder pushing the guy out, like go, not with pushing with his hand, kind of shoulder blocking the guy and tell him go. You see an absolute flash to the old, ironically the young Jake the Snake Roberts. The intensity with his eyes. And you see earlier in the film, right at the start of the film, you see the intensity. It does a really close up of his eye on a bit of WWE footage, but you really see that glimpse of the younger Jake the Snake Roberts, the way he used to be, that intensity, that really intensive aggression that he used to have in the ring. You see it for just a few seconds, but it's there. It's almost a kind of like a moment where you see, wow, he is coming back. He is fighting back. He really is, bringing out the old, Jake Roberts. So you see that, like I said, you only get to see it very shortly, but it's there. You can tell, a little bit, the old Jake is still alive. Again, it kind of jumps a little bit, this movie there, with Scott Hall now having moved out, just to live a couple of streets away with his son Cody. Again, I would love to have seen a bit more of Scott Hall in this movie. Obviously, Cody is now with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was part of the Wrestle Kingdom show on the 4th of January. Jake has also moved out, moves in with his friend Kyle, whom he met at a gym. And this is, I kind of understand his feelings here, but at this point in the movie, you see Jake again. A lot of this documentary actually happens in the accountability crib in Atlanta, Georgia. But Jake, there's one of the ladies there. It might have been Paige's wife or fiance at that point. I'm not entirely sure what she was at that point, but because the timeline does get a little bit skew with, unless you really go back and check it. But obviously the timeline is moving on, but you don't exactly know when it's happening. But Jake is getting his hair cut. He's got from the hair really that he wore in the at the end of the movie at the Hall of Fame. He's getting it cut. He's getting the real kind of famous ponytail cut. I kind of understand his feelings, but an intern called Dylan gets actually quite upset seeing Jake get his hair cut. I mean, there's actual tears, and I feel sorry for the guy. It's obviously one of the most signature parts of Jake Snake Roberts that he's kind of long shoulder hair. I know he's quite bald at the front. There's long hair at the back, and Dylan actually gets quite upset, unfortunately, seeing Jake get his hair cut. I would like to understand. I do wonder what happened to that ponytail. Whether it just got binned, or whether crew members took a part of it. I don't know. I would like to have actually found out what actually happened to the hair, because you do get to see it sitting on the table at one point. I think it's more of a let's film, let's show it off his head, for a moment kind of thing. Let's document this. Obviously, like I said, they kept cameras rolling. Diamond Dallas Page has talked about it on various podcasts. They kept the cameras going, pretty much 24/7. Then, unfortunately, again, another crisis of competence. After Jake, they did start. I'm not sure whether it's still continuing, but they did start a kind of podcasting that DDP at least used to do. And I know Jake had his own kind of version for a while. I'm not sure whether they actually still do that. And also, he gets included in the WWE video game. He then meets a girl, unfortunately, another crisis a little bit, where seems to have taken him back for a drink. I think it lasts a few days, but certainly, this woman, whoever it was, I think took him back on the wrong path, got him to drink again. I don't know whether he did anything, drugs or anything like that, but certainly Kyle, his friend, and the crew are very, very concerned about him. They confront him at the house, at the accountability crib, and they're trying to ask him questions, and he just says, right, that's it, goodbye. He doesn't really want to answer any questions. He said, right, that's it, goodbye, and then he walks out. You do show him. It does show him immediately returning, but apparently 24 hours later, and he's very apologetic. He seems to, I don't know whether it's a confrontation, but certainly I think seems to realise that woman, the lady, whoever it was, some kind of girlfriend, kind of was leading him down the wrong path. Like you see, he says himself again. Like I said earlier, Jake, right the way throughout this movie, he knows that he's got to change, and he knows, really, that he has. This is it. If he doesn't change now, he won't change. And he says that's what it is. It's a lifelong battle. Always will be. He's come a long way, but he certainly has still a way to go. He says he wanted to be a better father than his own. He wanted to be there for his kids at their ball games, at their events. Well, unfortunately, it didn't work out like that. Again, that's when his son Derek has made that point about him previously having no real support system for Jake. It said loner, whether it's through the addiction or his own personal attitude or whatever. He was very much an owner, struggling by himself, not letting anybody close. Then it comes, you see kind of Jake. Again, you see Jake kind of making another mini recovery. DDP gets a phone call to appear on the Old School Raw. Gets a phone call from Triple H. And that's the one where Jake appears at the end and unleashes a snake on, I think it was Dean Ambrose. And telling you that Shield, when Shield has CM Punk down, suddenly the music hits and everybody, you see the crew, sitting watching the Old School Raw, which DDP was obviously, they knew that DDP was going to be on it. They were apparently expecting Jake to appear to sit down and watch the Raw with them, but then obviously they hear the Jake Roberts movie hits, and then he suddenly appears, and they all realise suddenly, and they go crazy about they're really happy when that Jake actually appears on WWE. I do feel that's kind of the beginning of the relationship back with WWE for Jake, being involved in the video game, then appearing on the Monday Night Raw Old School special. I really do feel that was kind of the beginnings of the relationship that he has with WWE. I have to be, I kind of hate to call him out on this because I met him several times. I know, he has a great relationship with the local wrestling promoters here in Dundee, Scottish Wrestling Entertainment. But I can't believe that the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, actually missed Jake's return. DDP apparently tells him, stay till the end, you'll want to stay till the end, but Ted, for whatever reason, I think he left, he says he wanted to leave, go back to the hotel room, and he missed Jake. He didn't know, I don't think he knew Jake was there, or if he did, he didn't know that Jake was going to appear on screen. He really kind of kicks himself that he missed it. So how the $1 Million Man, unfortunately, it looks like not everything has got a price. Well, and if watching Jake live there for the Old School Raw was available, unfortunately Ted DiBiase missed his opportunity to pay it because he missed it, and he really kicked himself when he realised what he had missed. Then it comes to one of the great videos that we've seen, certainly 2014 on YouTube, and it's it's up on the Diamond Dallas Page YouTube channel, DDP Yoga. I think there's a couple of YouTube channels. Certainly check for it. But you see Jake the Snake Roberts going to I believe it's Paige's bedroom, and Paige is sitting there eating, and Jake says that he got a call from WWE, and unfortunately, I believe this was something like about 3 or 4 weeks out from the 2014 Royal Rumble, but Jake tells Paige that he's got a phone call, and unfortunately he will not be in the Royal Rumble. And that's very, very sad. You're very upset. And like I said, one of the things that really continues throughout this is that Jake wanted to be in the Royal Rumble. He really, really wanted to be in that Royal Rumble, and hopefully, whether we'll see him on the January 24th in Orlando, I don't know. I kind of hope we do. I don't know whether with the release of this, hopefully maybe we'll see him, but. That's very sad. I hate this. I wanted to be in the Rumble, and that's very, very sad, and very upset. And he's really great acting. Because he's kind of, it's kind of, okay, tell DDP that, and then he kind of goes to leave, and Paige gets up and kind of try and console Jake, and then Jake turns around. It's a very classic video you can see on, I'm sure it's on Diamond Dallas Page YouTube channel, but certainly up there somewhere. Jake turns around and says, I want, they told me, I won't be in the Royal Rumble, but, we'll see you at WrestleMania at the Hall of Fame. You're going in, and obviously that gets a really great reaction from Paige. And it's a very happy moment. And even Paige afterwards, after Jake has gone out the room, you see Paige getting interviewed, and obviously Paige has been crying, very emotional about it, which is a great moment. Then of course Paige talks about that Scott Hall being inducted. Obviously, as we know, in 2014, both Jake Snake Roberts and Scott Hall were both inducted in the same class into the WWE Hall of Fame. Then we get to see some behind the scenes footage of the WrestleMania 30 weekend in New Orleans. And we see a bit of Scott's speech, the bad times don't last. but bad times don't last, bad guys do. As Gene Okerlund and Chris Jericho rightfully says, and Pop Anyway Base, they've both now been very much welcomed back into the WWE family. And then, as Jericho says, WWE is very much different these days. They won't really touch them anybody, unless they can prove that they have, that they can be relied upon, that they're not going to embarrass the company. And you see Jake being inducted in a little bit of being introduced by Diamond Dallas Page again, and Jake makes his speech, which is a really heartfelt speech. It's sure it's on the WWE Network. I think it's on the WWE Network, and it says thank God for second chances. It's actually more like maybe a fifth, sixth, seventh chance for Jake Roberts, but certainly says thank God for second chances. And he makes a great speech, and obviously it's very well received. That kind of pretty much brings us to the end of the movie. We do get a couple of minutes, kind of after the credits, kind of Rocky style-esque, like the Rocky movies. It ends with Jake, Scott, and Diamond Dallas Page fooling around in a wrestling ring, and all tying up, and it kind of it very much does that Rocky-esque ending where all three go to tie up, and it pauses, goes to black and white, and all the credits roll up. Over the image of the three of them. One of the great quotes by Jake is, and the one that he says several times during the film, "My history will not be my destiny." Perhaps Jake, or perhaps. My overall thoughts on this: it was a really good documentary. Like I said, I would like to have seen more of Scott Hall's recovery, more of maybe of Scott Hall. And I know it's called The Resurrection of Jake the Snake, and maybe there's, maybe there'll be more on the DVD, Blu-ray. I know they're wanting to bring out versions of that. Hopefully, we'll get a few extras, a few bits of unseen footage in those versions of the film. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's slightly different for people like myself who've never drunk or smoked or whatever, or had these kind of addictions, to really get the genuine understanding of, of what Jake and Scott are going through, of where they come from, and obviously the life they've lived on the road, many years of their life, whether it be with WWE or any other company or just wrestling generally. It's a really good movie. Like I've seen many reviews saying that you don't really need to be a wrestling fan to enjoy it, and I would say you don't, because although Jake is famous for wrestling, it pretty much kind of could be anybody. It could be a plumber, it could be a mechanic, it could be a dock worker. To be honest, it could Jake could have probably, I know he wanted to, when he was younger, be an architect, and he kind of, threw away that dream for trying to, as he said, shove it up his father's arse, because his father, like I say again, in the relationship with his father, again, Pick Your Poison, the WWE DVD is really, really good for getting really into everything about his childhood and about things that happened, quite a few things that happened in his personal life with his father, his siblings, certainly his stepmother and the abuse that she gave him. It's a really good documentary. It's fantastic to see that entire journey for both Scott and Jake right the way throughout this documentary. The way they're able to turn their lives around is just fantastic, and it's not even, and I know that a lot of the work is done by Jake and Scott, but certainly Diamond Dallas Page deserves absolutely a huge amount of credit for really pushing these guys, for having a scheme that, having the DDP yoga methods that really work for these guys. And obviously, a lot of people, let's be honest here, quite a few people online or whatever, wrestling fans, quite a few people were actually waiting for this kind of thing to go wrong. They were almost waiting for, kind of like I said, that news where that maybe Scott's gone back on the drinking, the drugs, or Jake's been found dead, or Scott's been found dead, or an overdose, or whatever. There was quite a few people waiting for it to go wrong. And I'm not, I'll be honest here. Like I said, I was not really one of those guys. I said earlier, and I hate, I'm happy to admit I was completely wrong, but I was one of these people who would not be surprised that Jake, well, if Jake had passed away a few years ago, I would not have been surprised. Unfortunately, pretty much the same with Scott. But it's great to see these two guys, really turn their lives around and make the change. And again, the truth is that whatever caused Jake to do it, whatever caused Scott to do it, I don't know. But I think this movie proves that you can't really help these kind of addicts, these kind of people with personal problems or personal demons, whatever way you wish to actually term it. You really can't help these kind of people unless they're actually wanting to help. It could have gone majorly wrong. It could have all blown up in Diamond Dallas Page's face. It could have led to, like I said, the unfortunate endings for both of these guys. Luckily it's not. Thankfully it's not. And Jake tweeted just yesterday, about 19 hours ago, saying that the film has had a happy ending. I'm still clean and sober, which is great news. About nearly 2 years on now from where the from when the film ends, because it ends in March, April, certainly about April 2014. 2 years on, to hear that both of these guys are still going strong, it's really good news. Again, it's proof that you cannot help these kind of people unless they're really, really wanting to help. And whatever happened, whatever marked that change in Scott, and whatever marked that change in Jake, something happened. Whether it be Paige reaching out to them, the publicity, whatever, it's impossible to tell. And I think probably both of the guys don't know that moment. Maybe Scott. Like I said, Scott did say on when Jake and DDP phoned him that he felt kind of a bit of spiritual awakening, and it's almost like God talking to him. But I think this proves that you can't really help these kind of people unless they're genuinely wanting the help. As I said, really good. As a wrestling fan, I would recommend it. Certainly if you're a fan of Jake Roberts, follower DDP or Scott Hall, like I said, I'd really like to have seen a little bit more of Scott in the movie. But certainly, it's a great documentary. I would certainly recommend people checking it out. It is available on iTunes. I think it's $9.99 for standard definition, $10.99 for HD, but you can rent it for, or I think it's around half that price. You can rent it on iTunes. I think it's 28 days to watch it, and 48 hours from the beginning of playing the movie to watch it through to the end. So if you don't want to buy it, you can still, you can rent it on iTunes. Like I said, I know they're working on DVD and Blu-ray releases and releasing it on iTunes, and many other countries around the world. They're certainly working on that. But I would say it's a good, it's a radical journey that certainly nobody, people including myself, sometimes thought that the likes of Jake and Scott would never go on. Steve Austin said it earlier. We've seen so many people sadly pass away very early in the wrestling business, and many people thought that Jake and Scott would be simply just two more of those guys. But with DDP Yoga's help, with DDP's help, with all of the support that they've had, they've been able to turn their life around, and I'm thankful for that. I really hope, like I said, hopefully sometime in the future I met Dallas, I met Scott, and that Wolfpack tour. Maybe perhaps one day I'll get to meet Jake and check up on them, see how they're doing. I know that a few of them are doing podcasts right now due to the release of this movie. Just check. I'm sure through their Twitter timelines, I'm sure they'll retweeted or tweeted about different interviews that they've done. I know that DDP's been on podcasts like Jericho's, Austin, various podcasts that they've been on through these last couple of years. Oh, I don't know why my computer's gone back on again, but I don't know. But certainly check out The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. Whatever your feelings on these guys, check out check out the movie on iTunes. Check out various podcasts that they've done. Just go into iTunes or search their names and plus podcast on Google or whatever search bar. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good, quite emotional at times. Like I said, these guys, they've been around, for many, many years in our lives. So, to show them the support, I'd like to buy this movie. It's very enjoyable. I'd certainly recommend it to people, whether you're a wrestling fan or whether you've kind of had personal troubles, whether it be addiction or other personal troubles, through in your life. It's a really, really good look at basically three guys and their struggles and the way that they come to battle their struggles. It's a very good movie. Please check out The Resurrection of Jake the Snake is available now on iTunes. So it's coming soon on DVD and Blu-ray. I know they're working on different ways of getting the movie out there. It's exceptional. I really, really enjoyed The Resurrection of Jake the Snake.